Hello, and warmly welcome to today's webinar on self-compassion and positive psychology. It's been really great to see how many of you are interested in this topic. It happens to be one of my absolute favorites, and why, I will tell more about that later today, but I seriously consider that without self-compassion, I don't think I would be sitting here talking to you. Being an entrepreneur, it's just been so beneficial and helpful in my work life, but also in my personal life, and I am super excited to be able to share about this topic to you today. But I'm also looking forward to hearing from you guys, and we are going to do a few of exercises where you get to share your thoughts if you want to. And I would like to test the chat right away. So if you could please write there one thing that you are grateful for today or right now. So it would be great to see who is there and what kind of gratitude topics you guys come up with. I am very grateful about the nature. That has been very beautiful to see. Today I came back to Finland from the United States, actually just a few hours ago, and when we were landing, the colors of the autumn were just so beautiful, and we have a forest in our backyard, and coming back home to that is just very grounding and gives me a lot of reasons for gratitude. Okay, great. The chat is working and you guys are commenting there. So Kirsi is saying my best friend. Anna is saying dear friends and family. Really grateful for my family, says Dot. Oh, there, Helmi says also nature. There's a lot of different types of topics, but also similar ones. So often gratitude can have to do with other people, like family is coming up here. Anna-Lena says sauna and cold water. Oh, wow, that's a good one as well. But so are all gratitude topics. Like it can be something very small, like the fact that I don't know, I have a nice pillow here that I like, or it can be something very big, like something family related, health related, work related. There's Kirsi saying my cat. I'm grateful for my life, and my husband says Tina, and Tuija says my daughter. Thank you for sharing this. This is actually a really great way to start, to be able to share something positive and have this shared experience of kind of like savoring the positive feeling of gratitude. And that actually is one of the topics that is researched in positive psychology. And one of the findings is that when you are feeling a positive emotion, it lowers your blood pressure. So if there is a little bit of some kind of like stressful situation, like I was a tiny bit stressed about today's presentation, because today we were going to present together with my dear colleague and Joyla's other founder, Paulina Piipo, but unfortunately she is not feeling well and she wasn't able to join us. And since I just got back to Finland and have a little time difference and everything, I was thinking like, oh, how is this going to go? But already now, this positive sharing and emotion is really beneficial and helpful, and I feel really excited and grateful to be here with you. Thank you. So you are already using the chat and sharing your thoughts. So please feel free during the whole time that we have together tonight, or in the morning, or whatever time zone you are in, to write there if you have any kind of questions or any kind of thoughts or ideas, and our team will be here to make sure that we at least get to reply to most of your questions. And even if you have questions later on, I'm going to provide our contact information and you can send them later on as well. But thank you so much for joining and coming to listen about the really great topic of self-compassion and positive psychology. My name is Netta Lehtonen, and I am very excited to share this moment with you. And now I'm gonna put on some presentation here, so just a moment. Let's turn it on. Here you go. Now I hope you're able to see it, and I should be able to see the chat as well. Good. All right, so today the topic is self-compassion, but we're talking about it and positive psychology, related to positive psychology. So actually, first of all, I would like to ask you guys that how many of you are familiar with positive psychology? And I'm gonna turn on a poll right now. You should be able to get this question. Are you familiar with positive psychology? And you can answer yes or not yet or somewhat, and we can see what the situation is. Oh, wow, it's actually pretty even. So there is an amount of you who are familiar, somewhat familiar, and not yet. It's great to hear that we have both of you guys who might already be very familiar, but still want to listen and learn more about the topic, but also you guys who aren't familiar with it yet, and then everything in there in between. Good, great. So I'm gonna explain it very briefly what positive psychology means, and I hope that this helps you understand what we're talking about and also gives good basics in relation to self-compassion. So I'm going to end the poll now, and the results were that 42% are familiar, 45 somewhat, and 11 not yet. Thanks for the answers. Here we have this line from -10 to +10, and clinical psychology in general has been more focused on this minus side of this line, or this scale. So they've been focusing more on if we are in this what can be called language, and we're experiencing some kind of or different types of mental problems, disorders, maybe anxiety, depression. What can we do to help people to take steps toward the normal, even toward flourishing? But the thing is that science shows that normal, this zero state here on the scale, doesn't actually mean that we are flourishing, that we are experiencing happiness, we find meaning in our lives, that we know our values and are able to utilize them, or that we are very self-compassionate, for example. So positive psychology was created in 1998 to kind of focus on this plus side, because Martin Seligman, who is one of the founding fathers, and Chris Peterson and other psychologists, they were thinking that, okay, if we would ask people what is important in life, quite many of us would actually be focusing more on this plus side. Yet there's a lack of research on that side. So we know quite a lot about the minus side, and it's really important. But we unfortunately don't know that much about this plus side. What makes us flourish? What is the good in life? So they founded this area of psychology called positive psychology and started focusing more and more research on this topic. So there was already some done in humanistic psychology and so on, but there was definitely a lack on it. So positive psychology focuses on studying what works well, what can we learn about it, and how can we help actually the really great masses. Some studies say 70 to 80% of us are in this zero or normal state or around it. So how can we help them to take steps toward flourishing? But I still want to say that this is like a very simplistic explanation, and the scale is like a very simple model. So obviously we are like complex people. We can be on the minus side maybe in some area of our lives, but then on the plus side in some other. So it's not that simple to say that, okay, we only focus on this, or you are now here on this scale. But this still gives quite a nice explanation, I think, and I hope that you get something out of it. And here is one of the scientific definitions of positive psychology. So it is the study of human well-being, strengths, resources, and how to promote them. So this is really important, not only studying that what works, what is well-being, what are our strengths, but also how to promote them. And now, if still going a little bit back to that scale, it's actually pretty visible that for example, in clinical psychology, or people who work on this minus side are able to utilize these like strengths, for example, or these findings from positive psychology. So these both sides mix together as well, but positive psychology specifically focuses on what works. And then a few benefits of higher well-being. Why is it worth it to study and learn about positive psychology? Why is it worth it for you to be here today? Quite many benefits, actually, and here are just a few of them. But the ones we picked for you today are that benefits of higher well-being or flourishing are, for example, better social relationships, higher resilience, something that is talked about quite a lot at the moment, and something that is very much needed for our flourishing. Also improved work performance, increased creativity, and some studies say that it can lead up to 8 times higher work engagement. That's quite a lot. Also, potentially 3 times higher productivity. So here you see different types of benefits, and we could also add here more positive emotions, happiness, meaning, and just life satisfaction and work satisfaction in general. So quite important benefits in my opinion, at least. And why am I here talking to you about these topics today? So my name is Netta Lehtonen, and I am the co-founder of Joilla. I'm also a master of applied positive psychology. I'm a coach, and I have a bachelor in science in economics. And we at Joilla focus everything we do on flourishing, how to promote it, how to help people, organizations, teams, families, communities to flourish. And this is something that I feel very passionate about. My background is in the financial sector, in banking, and I saw, well, let's put it this way, I didn't see a lot of flourishing, positive emotion spreading at the workplace, or finding meaning in what people are doing, and I was kind of feeling the same myself. So I luckily found this science of positive psychology and went to study a master in that, so that I now and we at Joilla can spread this science to you. And like said, you in some emails probably got the information that our other co-founder, Pauliina Piipo, was supposed to join, and she unfortunately couldn't because she's not feeling well, but she says hello to all of you and hopes to see you in the next webinar. And a few more words about what we do at Joilla. So we are a training and consultancy company representing the third wave of positive psychology. So some of you hadn't necessarily heard of positive psychology yet, but like I said, it's an area of psychology that was founded in 1998. It was criticized on focusing a lot to just the positive side and promoting the positive. But I think one of our professors at University of East London put it really well, that just like a baby usually needs to crawl before it learns to walk and then run, you got to start from somewhere. And if there isn't a lot of studies about what are positive emotions, what are they needed for, it's understandable that that's where it began. But then came the second wave of positive psychology, which we are very passionate and have had in our business from the very beginning, like a big part of it, which is taking more of the dark side of life into the equation of flourishing. So how can, for example, I don't like to talk, and we don't like to talk about negative emotions, but how can unpleasant emotions really be beneficial to our flourishing? And now with the third wave of positive psychology, it's bringing more of these so-called the second wave and the first wave were criticized a little bit about focusing too much on just the individual. So now we also feel super excited and passionate to take more of the perspective into, okay, how can we help each other as teams, families, communities to flourish, and how does different kinds of like these bigger picture areas affect our flourishing? So not just as individuals, but all the different areas we are involved in, like work, like the organization, the structures there, and the community, and even the government and politics and so on. So there's more and more research coming on this, and we like to take this into what we are doing and how we are training people. So we have introduced a wide-ranging opportunity to study positive psychology in Finland, which was not possible a few years ago, but now it is. And now we are Finland's most popular trainer in positive psychology. And this is really exciting and great. And maybe you have heard that Finland has a few years in a row been chosen as the happiest country in the world. So it's also exciting to bring like studies done in Finland to widen the view of positive psychology. And we have thousands of satisfied customers, and we've been able to promote this kind of free information, like this webinar, for example, and methods, tools for tens of thousands of people. So thank you for joining and taking part of these people and spreading the word and the tools of positive psychology. And we offer several different kind of training options, and I will talk a little bit about them later on. But what is promised today in general is that we will talk about what is self-compassion and what is it not. And this is actually an important part. And then the 3 components of self-compassion. So what does self-compassion consist of? And how can you actually strengthen your self-compassion? So what can you do to increase your self-compassion? And please feel free to share in social media if you want. You can take pictures of the presentation. And if you do, please tag Joella Fi on Instagram, or then you can also use the hashtags Joella, or in Finnish, if you want, kohti kukoistusta. All right, so I have been talking a lot about flourishing, positive psychology, and what we do at Joella. And everything, all our trainings, everything we do is based on Joella's frame of flourishing. So this has 6 different areas, and this is based on Martin Seligman's research on what makes people flourish, and then we have expanded it a little bit and changed it a little bit. But here are 6 different areas, and the first one is positivity. So there, this second wave of positive psychology, according to it, so we wanted to bring emotions in general, not just positive emotions, but how can emotions in general affect our well-being? But of course, also, like I mentioned here in the beginning when we did this gratitude exercise, how positive emotions affect our health and brings us flourishing. Then we have engagement, which has to do with the strengths, flow, work engagement, and so on. Also, the most important area, according to research, relationships. Then maybe the second most important area, according to new studies, would be meaning. What is meaningful to you? What brings meaning to your life? And then today we focus on this accomplishment area, where we have self-compassion and how it can help us to accomplish our goals. But then last but not least, vitality, the mind and body connection, and health, how the mind and body are connected when it comes to emotions, how we eat, sleep, exercise, everything has to do with our mind's well-being as well. And now I want to bring you into your first mind gym. So just as we know when talking about vitality, that if we want to take care of our body, we need to eat healthy, go to the gym. We can't just do it once, we have to keep going. Mind needs the same type of training. So we like to call these exercises mind gym exercises. And I first want you to recall a situation where a close friend of yours has failed, made a mistake, or suffered in some way. This doesn't need to be anything huge, but some way he or she failed or suffered. And then I want you to think about, how did you react or respond to the situation? What was your reaction when you heard about this? And then the very important question. How would you usually react if this similar situation happened to you? Do you notice a difference between these two different situations, your friend versus yourself? And then if you do, what would it be like if you reacted toward yourself the same way as toward your friend? While you think about this, I will turn on another poll, and I would like to ask you, based on this exercise, or maybe you've been thinking about this earlier, are you more critical toward yourself or others? Or maybe there isn't a difference. And please also feel free to share your thoughts. But here now there should be a poll. So your friend fails or suffers. How do you react to that situation? What if it happens to you? I don't know about you, but we're going to soon talk about that. According to research, 80% of us are actually more critical toward ourselves than others. And at least I really see this clearly in my own life. So let's say me and Paulina are doing this webinar together now. And Paulina makes a mistake. Maybe she totally forgets what she's saying, or she says something that actually sounds stupid or something. I don't necessarily even recognize that she does it. Or if I do, it usually just I don't think about it. I'm like, okay, well, that happened, doesn't matter. And maybe even, help her out if needed. Usually that's not even needed. But if it happens to me, nowadays I've been practicing or trying to practice this every day so much that I see a clear difference. But still sometimes, and definitely if looking back like a few years, I would have been extremely critical toward myself. Like, what do they think about you now? You don't even know that word. Like, now they probably think that you don't know anything at all, or why are you doing these webinars in English? Whatever it is. But the critical voice inside me is extremely different, and especially was extremely different toward myself than my friends. And now when I can see your answers here, 90% of you have answered that more critical toward yourselves. And then 9% that there is no difference. But actually, according to this, 0% says others. Thank you. This is very, very interesting and very much according to the research then. So like I said, about 80% of us are harder on ourselves than our friends, than on others. And I often get the question here that what about, is there a difference between women and men? And not enough research has been done about yet, but some studies say that yes, there can be, that women are maybe a little bit more critical toward themselves, and this can have to do with that we are often maybe more stuck in analyzing something that has happened. But it doesn't mean that men doesn't also have the need for self-compassion, and that they also aren't critical toward themselves. But there might be a correlation that that women are even more critical. Now, why is this? One reason might be that in this modern society, many of us can have a little bit of pressure of something that we should be doing, like comparing to others, or even just this kind of mindset that always aiming for something more and not kind of stopping to enjoy and be grateful for what you already have. You have one goal and then you're running for the next one. You think that you will be happy when you have this job or this much money or whatever it is. There's always a pressure to go forward, or that you should do something. And also this kind of statement that you see every now and then, that happiness is your own choice and it's only up to you to be happy. This creates a lot of pressure, right? And this third wave of positive psychology is doing more and more research on how everything affects this. It's not only about the individual. So this is a lot of pressure, and no wonder if it creates this kind of self-critical thinking. And also, many of us struggle with feelings of now a word that I can't pronounce, inadequacy and anxiety. So yeah, there's a lot of burnout, a lot of anxiety, and self-criticism can even seem to be like a safe choice. So it can be that like we actually think that by being self-critical, we can reach our goals easier or better. It's like a learned behavior of and thought that this is the way to do it. But actually, according to studies, that's self-defeating. And therefore, self-compassion provides a better, more compassionate option. And according to Kristin Neff, who is maybe the most famous researcher on this topic, self-compassion is treating yourself as you would treat a good friend. So that's actually one tool of how to practice self-compassion. When you are suffering, when something goes wrong, are you able to treat yourself as a good friend? How would you do that? If you like think of how you would do it to a friend, are you able to bring that to yourself? And then when we talk about the 3 components of self-compassion, these are important because according to Neff, all these 3 need to happen so that we can actually talk about self-compassion. So that self-compassion is actually able to happen. We need to have these 3 components. So the first one is mindfulness. And by that, we mean the presence of actually being there, the presence of listening to how you're doing, being there with your suffering, being there with the unpleasant emotions, being there with the experience in an open and balanced way. So when we are mindful, we don't try to push something aside or make it bigger. We just are there mindfully in the experience, but don't try to change it. So it's the ability to be present in the moment and allow for difficult emotions too. Then we have common humanity, and that means that we understand that all people are incomplete. We all make our mistakes. We all fall every now and then. This is not just about me. It also happens to others. So mistakes, failures, and difficulties, they are a normal part of life. We don't expect, which is actually one reason why people think of happiness in the future in a way that doesn't actually happen, because we forget to think about and actually understand that there will always be some. Hi guys, I'm so sorry, and I hope you can see me again. We're supposed to have a very fast internet connection. I don't know what is happening with it right now. This, for some reason, is extremely typical when the topic is self-compassion, that there's always something going on. But I get to practice what I preach, so to say, and be compassionate toward myself. All right, so I think I was just talking about when something happens to your friend, it is easier to be kind. But this is also like a good example, and I'm really happy to actually feel it, that I've done the best I can with having the best connection possible to come to this webinar. And sometimes things like this happens, and that's out of my reach. It happens to other people as well. I can feel right now, being mindful, that it feels a bit unpleasant, but at the same time, I can be kind, use this as an example, and keep going. And Now, when we talk about what self-compassion is not, it is not self-pity. Self-pity means that you don't see this shared or common humanity perspective. It's more like you get really involved with your own problems and you think you are alone with them. It's also not self-indulgence. It doesn't mean that it's like this kind of laziness or letting yourself off easy. You still, I want to say, aim for your best or try your best, but that might not always maybe be the best thing either. But I mean that you are thinking about the bigger picture, the longer picture. So self-compassion has to do with what is best for you, like in the long run. And therefore it can't mean, like if we talk about that, instead of, let's say, you want to go on a walk 2 times, 3 times a week, or you maybe want to go to the gym, whatever it is for you, go swimming, take care of yourself. That's the main point here. If you instead every time stay at home, watch Netflix and eat cake, that is not self-compassion, because then you are not taking the best possible care of yourself regarding the bigger picture. But maybe sometimes there's a moment when you actually like just feel sad, feel bad, don't want to go, and that's okay. It's like, all right, and one of the best things to ask yourself that, what do I need right now? How am I feeling? What would help me out? And then allowing that kind of self-compassion. Okay, today I'm going to stay at home and watch Netflix. That can be self-compassion. But we always talk about that a longer time period. So therefore, it's not the same as self-indulgence. And it is actually, like I said, self-criticism is not the best way of motivating ourselves, getting our goals met. So it's actually better in motivating ourselves to reach our goals than self-criticism. And this is often think somehow that can be it, that it's like I'm taking the easier way out if I'm being self-compassionate. But studies say the other way, and one reason to this is that even when failures happen, even when something unexpected happens, if you treat yourself self-compassionately, you are more likely to show up again and keep trying than if you are self-critical. And this makes sense, right? And I don't know about you guys, but I could imagine that many of you who are parents have had these kind of situations where you've been like, very hard on yourself, maybe heard some parenting advice from somebody else, or even maybe said something critical to your child when they do something wrong. Or not even wrong, it can just be something like, they don't get a good grade or whatever it is. But then if you like actually go to their shoes or yours as a parent, it is more likely that you are motivating yourself and your children if you show a self-compassionate way instead. And that doesn't mean that whatever kind of behavior or the fact that we do something stupid or wrong is good, but it just gives this example. And this is, by the way, just as much as a leader or friend or whatever, we give this example that in life we make mistakes. We're not perfect. We're not supposed to be perfect. I don't even know what perfection is, and that's okay. We can always still like be self-compassionate and keep going. And self-compassion is also different from self-esteem. So you can be compassionate toward yourself even when you don't feel good about yourself. And then self-esteem is more about feeling good about yourself. And it's actually, according to some studies, we can have too much self-esteem, whereas there are no studies saying that we could have too much self-compassion, because then it's not self-compassion, then it's something else we talk about. And unlike self-criticism, which asks if you're good enough, self-compassion asks what's good for you. And this is, I think, a very, very lovely quote by Kristin Neff. And like I mentioned earlier, that's one of the great questions you can ask yourself when you want to show compassion toward yourself. That what's good for you? What do you need right now? And here, like I mentioned, the parenting part, that's why I chose this picture here of myself pregnant, because I at least could feel that this new area, like I've used so much self-compassion when it comes to work, doing these kind of webinars, all of that. But then when becoming a mother, it's like there's so much advice of what to do. People say a totally different thing. It's like such a new world, and it's such a vulnerable state. You're like supposed to be a good example and use these tools like for myself that I learn of positive psychology and everything, and it's so easy to be there like, okay, is this good enough? Am I good enough? No, I'm not doing enough, and all of that. But then self-compassion brings such a beautiful side and understanding to it all. And I sometimes have done these kind of workshops to teachers, and they often ask me that, okay, what would be the number one tool that, if you have to pick one from positive psychology, that we should teach the kids, what would that be? And in the end, I think pretty much always I answer self-compassion, because like I said, the benefits, there are so many benefits, and also the fact that that's just like a better way of motivating and preparing for a life where mistakes, unpleasant emotions are just part of the experiences we are going to face, for sure. So it builds resilience in a very, very like gentle, compassionate way. But talking about this gentle side, Kristin Neff has actually this year published a new book about fierce self-compassion. So we could divide self-compassion this way, that there's this tender self-compassion, this gentle self-compassion, which has to do about accepting ourselves to alleviate suffering. It's about comforting ourselves, to remind ourselves that we are not alone. All these different components, being present with your pain, that can be like the gentle way that, okay, I'm feeling bad right now. I am here for myself. I like support myself, and I'm present with this emotion. And that doesn't need to be like that fierce, but self-compassion can be very, very this kind of like hard side at the same time. And this is actually what I've always thought is one of the most important sides of self-compassion to myself. So there is this like self-compassion that helps you to take action to alleviate suffering. And here we can, for example, divide this to these three different sides. So there can be this protective side, which has to do with drawing boundaries and saying no. And I think this has maybe been the number one thing for myself that self-compassion have brought into my life, that it has really, really helped me to bring that compassion, that I can have my boundaries and I can say no to certain things. And also this providing side, saying yes to your needs. Again, this question, what do you need right now? And then with self-compassion, giving that, allowing that to yourself. Then there's this motivating side about learning, growing, and changing the world. So I actually, for example, saw one study where I think they looked at 200 women, and the ones who had more self-compassion were actually like taking more like this kind of social stance for what they were standing for. So like looking at their values and taking action towards something that was important for them. So this has to do with this changing the world part. So this can be one good thing to take with you from this webinar today, remembering that self-compassion can be something very like soft and gentle, but it also has the fierce side, and there can be situations where you need one or another, and you can like view it from these different angles. Now I would like you to go and do a mind gym exercise once again. So I would like you to think about if you can identify situations or themes where your inner critic easily takes over. So if you have some certain, maybe it's like a work-related thing, or it has to do with parenting or your hobby, like whatever it is there some specific kind of situation or theme where you notice your inner critic? And by the way, if somebody now thinks, it can even be like difficult, like what is this inner critic or what is this inner voice? But in that case, that is the voice that just asks you that question. So we all have that kind of inner critic, inner voice. It can also be our inner friend. But what does that say to you in that kind of situations? Like, what kind of situations is your inner critic most loud or talkative in? And what would you like to change? Is there something you would like to change? If you wish, you can write this down to yourself after the webinar. We warmly recommend of doing that, because the first step of self-compassion, at least in my opinion, is that you start recognizing, like, what does your inner critic say? Do you have an inner critic? In what kind of situations are there these kind of themes? So identifying a situation can serve as a good start for change. And I also warmly recommend that whenever, if you want to practice this, whenever you even notice, when you're present and like hear what your inner critic says, or notice that it's there, you can thank yourself, because that's really the first step. And then a few more benefits of self-compassion. So till this day, there's at least 1,500, I think already quite a few more studies on the benefits of self-compassion, and also like these health benefits of self-compassion. And these studies say that with practicing self-compassion, people who are self-compassionate can experience less stress, less anxiety, less depression, less feelings of shame, and do less of comparing themselves to others. And comparison is often something that provokes anxiety, for example, or stress. Okay, so these are some of these benefits, but then self-compassion can also increase our happiness, increase positive emotion, increase life satisfaction, increase resilience, self-confidence, and physical health. So this is something that is quite well researched, and the benefits speak for themselves, right? And the good news is that self-compassion can be learned. Like, we've already done these mind gyms, and starting from there, recognizing it, wanting to increase it, exercise it, take this tool into your toolkit, you can do it. And with this, with practicing self-compassion, you can alleviate suffering. But a very important part is that, just like positive psychology doesn't only want you to be positive and happy and smiling all the time, the intention with self-compassion is not to eliminate or suppress pain or uncomfortable feelings. That's actually even sometimes the case, that when you start practicing self-compassion, that might increase the suffering at first. It might increase the unpleasant emotions. And this makes sense, right? Because if you remember the mindfulness component from self-compassion, it means that you are there for your emotions. You are there for the unpleasant feelings, the unpleasant experiences. And that, like, it makes sense, right, can feel like not great. It can bring even some suffering. This is like a deeper dive into yourself and your emotions. But however, when we practice self-compassion, when we are open to trying this out, open to experience those unpleasant emotions, we can then get to these mentioned benefits on the previous slide. And one of the most important points, when you practice self-compassion, you need self-compassion. Actually, when you practice any kind of tool in positive psychology, and almost, I would say, anything in life whatsoever, self-compassion should be there to help you out. So there can be days when, if you actually like listen to yourself and you ask, what is it that I need now? What is it that serves me today? It might not be that, okay, I am going to practice self-compassion. So it's also okay to be self-compassionate while practicing this skill or tool. You don't always need to be like, harshly and critically going forward. You can allow yourself to take days off from the practice. And then when we want to practice this, how do we do it? So I've already mentioned a few examples. Here, once again, is this that, okay, awareness of the difficult moments. We need to be mindful. Therefore, different kind of mindfulness exercises, breathing exercises. And this can be like really short. We don't need to talk about like 45-minute meditation exercise. It can be that, when you walk a little, you're just present. How does my body feel? How does this walking feel, even for a minute? Or when you're doing your dishes, you're actually there. Like, what am I doing? How does this feel? So it can be like very simple, short exercises of being mindful at how your body feels, how your mind feels, how you are doing. And then also practicing one's inner discourse, practicing this inner dialogue, like talking to yourself like you would talk to a friend. Touch is a great one, and I will have one mind gym soon about that one. One of these mindfulness exercises that is very good and that Kristin Neff and others use in different kind of self-compassion programs or in the studies where they do this research is loving kindness meditation. That's one meditation that we really like and warmly recommend to test that out. And then also just simple breathing exercises. So this was, by the way, one great thing that I think it was from Kristin Neff that I read it regarding parenting. That just remember that like breathing is a form of self-compassion both for yourself and your child. Breathe in for yourself, breathe out for your child. And I think this could, once again, this is about parenting, but this could be taken into like, your colleagues, team, family, friends, whatever it is. So just stopping sometimes and taking a few long breaths. And there are many, many different techniques to this. And if you want to Google, you will, for example, find many options. All right, and here, once again, Joel's frame of flourishing, just as kind of like a mention that self-compassion is one of the tools that can increase and like by practicing it, all of these different areas can benefit from it. So, and also, that I would say is the most important thing. And so it's a really great tool for increasing our flourishing in general. But this Joel's frame of flourishing also works as a resilience model. So all of these areas are important regarding resilience, and therefore, and also like studies show, practicing self-compassion is a great way of increasing your resilience. And now a bit about self-compassion in the struggles of life. So regarding resilience. Self-compassion, according to studies, is found to buffer the negative effects of suffering, such as anxiety, depression, or stress. And when they have done this kind of longitudinal, now again, hard word to pronounce, longitudinal research, self-compassion helps us over the long run by reducing the negative effects of perceived stress. So this is a very, very important benefit. Even if we are experiencing stress, in the long run, it helps by reducing the negative effects of the perceived stress. And the reason for this is that self-compassionate people are more willing to experiencing those difficult feelings and acknowledging their importance, and acknowledging that they are part of life and they are an important part even to our flourishing. They're an important part to the resilience that we need for taking steps out of our comfort zone, for those unpleasant changes and struggles that just happen every now and then. And also, it bolsters the immune system. So I earlier mentioned that it even has physical benefits, and here are now a couple of them. So it enhances physical health by decreasing cortisol levels and increasing heart rate variability. So very, very clear benefits to our physical body that then affects the whole, our mind as well. And regarding this, here is one great way to get these benefits that are also physical. So one of the ways that you can increase self-compassion is this touching. A gentle and supportive touch can awaken readiness for compassion. It can comfort you. It can help increase sense of security. So you can try, for example, there are many ways, and one important thing in all of this that I've been talking about is that listen to what works for you. Even if a study says something, it doesn't mean that the exact same way works for you, then works for me, and so on. So here are a few examples. You can, for example, try this gentle touching. You can hug yourself, or you can put your hands on your heart. You can maybe just, like pet your hand a little bit. Whatever works for you, you can try this out. Or then you can do this more like supporting touch. So you can put your fist on your heart and then the other hand on top of it. And this is great if you need this kind of like fierce self-compassion. So you need, like, for example, a little courage. So this kind of represents that it has the little bit more like stronger or powerful feeling. And then you still gently put your hand on your fist. Or you can squeeze your own hand. You can place both hands on your hips and feel that kind of like self-compassionate power. Whatever works for you and whatever works for you in a specific situation. So try this out. See if you can find a way to comfort and or support yourself. And what works in one situation might not work in another. So try out different ways. And be present. Take this mindfulness part into this exercise. So what did this exercise feel like? What do the different ways of touch feel like to you? And this beautiful quote by Chris Germer is one of my favorites regarding self-compassion. A moment of self-compassion can change your entire day. A string of such moments can change the course of your life. And this is so true, at least in my own experience. And I know that a lot of the people are students. We have more than 500 students now who've done our longer course. And like I said, we have been talking about these topics with thousands of people. And this is something that many people say who have started to practice self-compassion, that it truly can change your life. So does many other tools in positive psychology as well. But self-compassion is one great one of them. But mentioning these other tools, I want to go through our services where you can find more about positive psychology, about other topics. So what we do at Joyla is that we, like already mentioned, we help people, communities, and organizations to flourish. And we do these kind of trainings, webinars, courses in English, Finnish, and Swedish. And we have training programs and courses for individuals and different kinds of workshops, lectures, speeches for organizations. And then we do these free webinars, and I'm going to show you the next date for the next topic that we already have set up. And you can find more information about these courses and these workshops for companies as well at www.joyla.com global. And mentioning these online training programs and courses that are coming in English also at the moment in Finnish, we have this Basics on Positive Psychology course, which is an introductory course on positive psychology, and that lasts 2 months. Then we have our longer course that I've already mentioned here before, which is Positive Psychology Practitioner. And there we go through this whole Joyla's frame of flourishing model, and it's a comprehensive well-being training program where we talk a lot about each of those areas. It takes 8 months, so you have time to actually reflect on the topics and really dig in. And we do this in collaboration with Finnish summer universities, but like I said, these are coming in English later on, currently offered in Finnish. And then the workshops mentioned, we customize these for organizations' needs. We have many different kinds and various topics, various work-life related topics, including, for example, one of my favorites, which actually I think is a great way to increase self-compassion, and that is character strengths. It's learning about what works in you, what works in your team and organization, and how to strengthen that forward instead of just focusing more on the weaknesses. So really goes hand in hand with self-compassion. Then resilience, which I've mentioned a few times today, and for example, meaningful work and self-compassion. We do this in different lengths. We do 1 hour workshop, 3 hours, or even entire workday workshops or series. So these always are looked regarding whatever the organization needs and what works best for them. These are feasible at all levels of the organization and all the way to management. Currently online mostly, and then also we do them at your premises if in Finland. But these workshops can be offered in English, Finnish, and Swedish. And upcoming free webinars, which we like to do every now and then. Today the topic is self-compassion. The next one will be on leadership and positive psychology, and that's on December the 14th. But like mentioned a few times today, you can definitely use these self-compassion tools in leadership as well. And since leadership is a lot about so showing example of self-compassion definitely works there. Relationships and positive psychology will be coming in the beginning of year 2022. So please stay tuned and follow our social media, and you will hear more about that. And also you get more information on our website and upcoming newsletters as well. But now, if you have any kind of questions that have arisen throughout this them down the chat, or like said, you can also contact us later. Stephanie has asked here how to face and handle the suffering that arises when you try to practice self-compassion and not to manage to do it. Yeah, thank you for this great question. I don't know if I had already mentioned it, but seriously, I think the best way is to do it with self-compassion. So maybe it doesn't sound like the easiest thing, and it's not. I think that's also important to be honest about it and be authentic about it, that this can be difficult, but being present there, understanding that it's part of it. Most people go through it, like seeing that these three areas of self-compassion are present, that in my opinion would be the best way to handle the suffering that arises. And just taking time, which has a lot to do with the understanding that this is part of it, and this is not easy. And one thing, by the way, is that I sometimes hear people talking about how to totally kind of get rid of your inner critic, but I don't know if that's possible. Maybe for some people it is. I personally don't believe that I will ever get rid of it, neither do I have the need to. It's more for me about being patient and present, and kind of becoming a friend of it, and understanding that it's also sometimes there, the critical voice, to kind of protect me. But then I can be in charge of, at least in most moments, of listening to it, and when is it actually maybe saying something that I should listen to, and when do I want to bring my inner friend into the picture instead, and kind of challenge the inner critic a little bit. Hopefully I replied to your question, and maybe also some of the things that I went through earlier already did. If there are not more questions, but please feel free to ask if you have any. I will go through this little summary. So self-compassion means treating yourself like a good friend. That's the easiest way to define it. Maybe the one that is also like a good to use as an explanation if somebody asks about it, or even if you want to talk about it in your work environment or to a child. This is like a really good way to define it. Then there are the three components of self-compassion that need to all be present. So mindfulness, common humanity, and self-kindness. And one way to show self-compassion toward yourself is to go through these three components. So when you are feeling suffering, like mentioned here, then go through that. Okay, this is how I'm feeling. Then, all right, this is normal. This happens. Others go through this too. It's part of life. And then bring the kindness. And that's already practicing self-compassion to its core. And then last but not least, self-compassion can be strengthened in many ways. And one of these is touch. So here, as a summary, I also provided other tools. Please think of what is the one good thing that was worth coming for? What is the one tool that you will take into practice? And remember self-compassion when you are practicing new tools, new teachings. And that's why one really good question is what is the one thing I will start with? Because often we try to change too much at once, and then it's even harder to be self-compassionate because it's harder to succeed at everything at once. Oh, and thank you, Stephanie. I replied to your question. Good, thank you. So think about what was the one good thing, what's the one thing you will take into practice, and save the date for our next webinar, Leadership and Positive Psychology, which will happen on December 14th. And here is one reference from one of our lovely students and customers, Laura Bratz, who is a customer encounter coach at DNA. And she says, positive psychology training with Joyla gave me more than I expected. Theory and tools for my personal life and flourishing, and also tools to apply at work. The most fantastic thing was to understand that still after 18 years of my coaching career, I can learn and realize new things that my coaches will benefit from a lot. Thank you, Laura, for the kind words. If you are interested in studying and learning more about positive psychology, please stay in touch with us. Like mentioned already, if you have any kind of questions, you can also reach out to us later, here are some ways you can do it. So there's our online page. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, or you can send an email to hello@joyla.com. So we hope to hear from you. We hope to see you at our next webinar. And if you think your organization could benefit from positive psychology, please feel free to send us an email, send us a message, and let's discuss that later. And Juha also put here to the chat our address, so you can go there and read more. But thank you so much for spending this time with me talking about self-compassion. I hope you get out of it as much as I do. And let's dig into positive psychology and leadership in December. Thank you, and have a lovely day, evening, or morning wherever you are. Bye-bye.